Let's bring in the newest member, NBC Sports Network, the former Orlando Magic head coach, Stan Van Gundy. Stan, how you been?
I'm great, Dan. Thanks for having me on. It's great to be a part of this.
Let me get business first here, because I haven't spoken to you since everything happened in Orlando, and you were sort of hanging out there, looking at your future, what you were going to do. Could Dwight Howard, was there any chance he was staying in Orlando?
Well, that's hard to tell. I don't really think so. I think he had made that decision about a year ago that it was time for him to move on, but you never know for sure. But I don't think he would have stayed.
But if, the role that you played in that, did you play any role in keeping him or, him leaving?
I don't think so. I didn't think so at the time, and I don't think so in retrospect. I mean, Dwight was, supposedly unhappy with me, and I was out, and he still departed. So I really don't think it had anything to do with it.
But is he the reason why you're not there? Because if he didn't want to stay there, I didn't understand why they weren't going to keep you.
Well, I don't think he really had anything to do with it. I think it was, the decision of our front office, the CEO, Alex Martins. He made that decision. I certainly wasn't forced out the door by Dwight Howard. And a lot of the things that happened, Dan, happened between coaches and players a lot. And had it been left in-house to be handled by Otis Smith, our GM, myself, and Dwight, I'm not saying Dwight would have stayed. I'm just saying the situation would have been a lot different.
Yeah, I don't know how these things play out like that, because I'm always curious. I was always taught, keep it in-house. Now it seems like everything's in a press conference.
Well, what happened from my end of it is there were too many things coming out publicly, and it just kept coming out that, Dwight had demanded that I be fired and the whole thing. There were all these rumors out there, and, I had gone to our front office and talked about what I thought needed to happen for the good of our team, not for me, but for the good of our team to get the distraction out of the way, and they weren't willing to do any of it, and so I just decided to put all the rumors to bed in one press conference, and it would have been interesting to me how that would have played out in the season. Unfortunately, after that day, we only had 2 more games with Dwight, and then he got hurt, and so never had a chance to see if it would have been successful.
He's Stan Van Gundy, now working with NBC Sports Network. What advice would you give Mike Brown in coaching Dwight Howard?
Well, it's easy to coach him, quite honestly, Dan. I mean, I've said that to people. Look, Dwight's one of the smartest people in the NBA. He's the smartest big guy I've ever coached. He can do anything. He'll practice every day. He's never looking for a day off. He's an easy guy to coach, and I really wouldn't have any advice for Mike. But if I had anything to say to him, it's just get him to do whatever it is you want him to do. He'll do it, and he'll do it well. He's a great player and a good hard worker.
Clear this up, because when you got fired, I said I could see you working with your brother at ESPN, whether on a game or in studio. Were you offered a job at ESPN?
Well, we thought we were. I mean, that's what, they had gotten us to a point, that we thought we had an agreement on what we were going to do, and then, it was just a matter of talking about salary and things, and then they came back and sort of, pulled the rug out from under us. But what that's done, quite honestly, is, and people say it all the time, and it may be cliche, but it's true, especially in this case, as one door closes, another one opens, and a very good opportunity here with NBC.
Were you going to work games or studio?
The plan was to work in the studio.
So you wouldn't have been working with your brother?
No, they maybe a couple of times we had gotten to where about 85% of it would have been in the studio, maybe a couple of times. We'd probably end up just fighting all the time on air anyway.
Look, I thought it would have been fascinating, because the one thing I've said, and I've always said this about you and your brother, you guys are honest. I don't know where that comes from, if it's your upbringing, but I think you guys are honest to a fault, which can really benefit you in this business, but it may preclude you from getting something back in the coaching industry. Are you concerned about that?
No, not really. Look, the one thing that, at the end of the day, some people may be a little bit concerned, but the one thing that'll always, all we sell in that business is winning, and so we've both won at pretty high levels, and so no, I wouldn't be concerned about that.
Before I let you go to talk about the rest of the NBA, what reason were you given that ESPN did not hire you?
Well, we really weren't. We've decided to go. The old we've decided to go in a different direction. Isn't that pretty much every job change? We've decided to go in a different direction, which when you tell me I'm not going to be working anymore for you is pretty evident, I think.
But I saw quotes where you talked about, or somebody said that David Stern pulled the plug on this.
Yeah, to be quite honest, I mean, I'm pretty sure that's exactly what happened. But, nobody will come out directly and say it. There'll be things said, anonymously and behind closed doors and all of that. But, he's a pretty powerful guy, and nobody's going to come out and say it directly, so...
Stan will be calling the Navy Marine Corps Classic, Georgetown in Florida on Friday. And let's see, what else do you have? Marquette, Ohio State as well. Would you rather cover college basketball or pro basketball?
You know what? I'm not really sure, but I'm really excited about this game on Friday, for a couple of reasons. Obviously, we've got an opener with, two high-profile programs in Florida and Georgetown, and two great coaches in Billy Donovan and John Thompson III, but even more so, just the venue and being out there around all of the servicemen and playing on the deck of an aircraft carrier. I can't wait for it. I'm going to be like a little kid out there, Dan.
But I'm still fascinated with college basketball, but I look at the one and done, and just when you get to know somebody, they're gone to the NBA. Now, having coached these kids who were one and done or two and done, what's the difference between that one and done or two and done and somebody who stayed 4 years as an NBA coach?
Well, I think coming in is where you really notice it their first couple of years. I mean, I had Jameer Nelson and J.J. Redick, as two of my guards in Orlando, both 4-year guys. And, they come in with a maturity that you don't get from the younger guys. And I think that's one of the interesting things in this game coming up. I mean, Billy Donovan's going to start in that game 3 seniors, one of them a fifth-year senior, and 2 juniors, whereas Georgetown is going to be very, very young. And I think we'll notice that, especially with it being the first game of the year. I think the one advantage that Florida's got is their guys are much more knowledgeable in their system, and they're much more mature.
What do you think of the flopping rule in the NBA?
Well, I think the idea to try to address it is good. I just don't think the way they're doing it is going to address it. I think the only way the flopping can be addressed is this, give your referees some freedom to clean it up. Those guys have all been around. They know what's going on. Just if a guy's flopping, just quit giving him calls.
I agree.
Even when he does get fouled. Once something doesn't work, it'll disappear pretty quickly. I think Charles Darwin had the theory of natural selection, and it'll apply to flopping also.
Well, I think you embarrass the guy. If he's flopped and you don't call anything, then he realizes you're not going to get that call, so get back up and go back down there and play defense.
No, you're exactly right, Dan. And then, NBA players are smart guys, and, they do things because it works. And if I'm going to flop and get a call, well, that's going to work. I'm going to keep doing it. If all of a sudden I'm not getting calls, I'm going to stop. Those guys don't want to keep falling on the floor all the time if they're not getting anything out of it.
At what point can we make a fair assessment of the Lakers with bringing in Nash, bringing in Howard, the fact that you got these guys in their 30s, you're running in the Princeton-style offense? Give me a number of games before you say, okay, this is who they're going to be, what they're going to be.
Well, you probably can't get there until halfway through the year, but I'll say this. What's really interesting is all the focus has been on their offense. And, you look at the numbers, and they're the number 4 offense in the NBA right now. Number 4. Their problem is, with all the great size they have, I think they need to become an elite defensive team, and they're 19th in the league defensively. But because they put a label on their offense, the Princeton offense, people have used that as the reason that they're not winning, and yet they've got one of the best offenses in the NBA right now. That's not their problem.
I wish you the best of luck, and I meant what I said, that you're honest, and it'll serve you well here, because there are a lot of guys who are coaches who get into broadcasting who are afraid to be honest because they don't want to upset their brethren or they want to get back into the business. So if you approach it the way you have, I think you'll be a great success.
Well, thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to working for NBC, and hopefully we'll be talking again.
Next time, we don't have to revisit Orlando. We can just talk basketball.
That sounds good.
Thank you, Stan.
Okay.
Stan Van Gundy, NBC Sports Network.